Hello, this is Robert Guillaume. Thank you for joining me on Your Money, Manage It. I will be discussing principles that will empower you to manage your finances made easy. Hello and welcome to Your Money, Manage It. And happy holidays, everyone. Today we have a special guest whose name is Beth Probst, and she's the founder of a company called At the Core. Now, At the Core works with students and parents, of course, but students to navigate the complexities of understanding career choices, making the proper career decisions for their life. She works with them to discuss college majors and what college, if any college, is the right choice. And it's just a fascinating approach because so many high school students today are left in the dark when it comes to opportunities for their future life and their careers. Welcome, Beth. Thank you for being a guest.
Bob, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to get to talk about this and to frame up, that discussion about college, which we all know costs a lot. And we're all hoping, right, with any investment we make to really leverage that return on the investment. And most of us don't go into our other investments that we make just crossing our fingers and hoping that it all works out okay. And yet I know there are thousands of families across the country every year that launch their kids to college with that crossing their fingers and their toes and just hoping it works out. So I wanted to share some tips that were really kind of targeted at those families that still have students in high school who have the time and the capacity to do some things that can make a difference in that student's confidence and clarity at the end of high school. Is that a reasonable way to spend our time today?
That's a great way. Thank you, Beth.
Awesome. So, you've got kids. I've got two in college. My husband and I have two in college. And when I talk to families who are trying to navigate that path through high school, so those years prior to making those decisions, I'm going to cough. One of the key things that families can do is really understand all of these amazing options that our kids have today. I went to high school in the 80s, started high school in 82, graduated in 86. There were in Indianapolis, there were not a lot of options. You basically just sat in a seat and took the next class. The only option that we did have was at the time a career technical or career center. And that tended to be the place where kids maybe who weren't having success in a traditional high school setting, they might go to learn a trade, right? So it might be cosmetology or auto repair, right? Or welding, because those kids needed to pick up skills. So those were the two options way back when. Today, the options for our kids just are mind-blowing. And if families never learn about them, so that's my number one tip, is learning about those options, really exploring what your district offers your kids. And I'll give some examples. But not only learning about them, but evaluating them year by year as you schedule classes for each child in your family. Because, it really, high school should be a make your own adventure version of high school, as opposed to what I described, what I experienced, which was just take the next class, take the next class, take the next class. And magically you were supposed to lift up your head at the end of high school and know what you wanted to do. So the kinds of options that our kids have, there's certainly career technical education, which is different than what I described. It's morphed and grown and changed through those years. And I can talk a little bit more about that, but you'll see options for aviation careers, for engineering careers, healthcare careers, business careers that happen. They just happen as electives that live outside of our high school. And it's often because they are expensive programs. They might have, $1 million robotics engineering equipment that can't live at each high school, so it lives off site. So career and technical education, one great option. Certainly advanced coursework that a lot of families are used to knowing something about. The AP classes or advanced placement classes from the College Board are very popular in high schools across the US. The International Baccalaureate Program, or IB programs, exist in many fewer high schools, but are also a very strong option for that advanced coursework. A third option, dual enrollment, is a wonderful choice for families that are looking for that opportunity for students to earn college credit, usually at a very reduced rate, or even in my current home state of Ohio, our program allows students to earn those college credits while in high school with paying zero additional dollars than you're already paying to educate your student. Isn't that cool? So they can earn college credit, Bob, at no cost.
Beth, I'm going to share something here. As you know, or may not know, but from 2007 through 2015, the last kind of public education hoorah that I pulled off was I founded one of the top-rated public charter schools in the nation at that time. I was the founder and then served as a CEO. And it was really spit and polish. And the school is still there. I'm not. I retired from that. But anyway, we had a young lady, case in point, and this was back at a time when what you just said hadn't really blossomed yet. But we were very, very advanced. The school was so advanced. In 2013, we had a young lady graduate with 32 college credits, walked into pre-med at Indiana University 2 years ahead of her peers. And we did that for several of our students. And the other nice thing about that, when you talk about career exploration, we had linked in your alma mater. We were the first school that actually linked in with Purdue's engineering technology, and our students were attending Purdue and APA at the same time. So it's huge. It's huge.
Good. It's huge. It's huge for several reasons. One, your program is about money. Your podcast is about money. And when we think about money and earning money as a family and using that money wisely, one of the wisest ways you can use money is by reducing the cost of college for your child. There are many experts who will tell you that your BS or your BA is on some level a commodity. And we want to pay as little as possible for our commodity, as that's just how commodities work, right? So if we can shift some of those credits into those high school years, and this isn't right for every student, but for those that it fits for, it can be an extremely powerful, really, it's like a hidden scholarship that a lot of kids just don't know how to leverage. So that would be another one I want families to really pay attention to, make sure that they're understanding those options for dual enrollment. And this does vary state to state. So different states have dual enrollment programs. The rules and regulations and timing behind them will differ from state to state. A couple more to talk about. One, again, we're talking about understanding all of those options that exist for your kids. Another really amazing one, and this is just crazy when you take a look at the list of electives, just standard elective classes that are available for our kids in a high school setting. You would not believe there are arts classes, nutrition classes. There are the high school my kids attended had 4 jewelry classes, jewelry 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm like, wow. There's bestseller classes. There's forensic science classes. And I'll pick on my own oldest kid. He was a business, math, money thinking guy. And he took certainly personal finance, and they had an accounting in high school, just a little small bite elective. Well, that class changed his trajectory. It caught that experience in that little one class period long, made a difference in the choices that he made going. made a difference in the choices that he made going forward in his college career. So electives are super powerful. And then one more, you'll see sometimes in high schools career academies or career pathways. So there are programs from organizations like Project Lead the Way. Sometimes high schools will create them themselves. It might be just a small collection of classes, often related to in-demand jobs like engineering and healthcare, business, et cetera. So I just want families to understand all of those options. They're all going to have pros and cons. And until you understand what they are, you can't help each kiddo plan for that important step of high school scheduling.
And, on a little different pathway, because we've been kind of discussing, saying college. Over Thanksgiving, my nephew, who is about 40 years old, he came with my brother from Wichita, Kansas, and just spent Thanksgiving with us. And he's now taking the test to be journeyman or whatever, electrician. And he had gone to college. Nothing was clicking. I mean, a good student, but nothing was clicking. And so now he's found this niche of being an electrician, and he's wiring all these homes you see being built and going up around Columbus or Indianapolis or wherever.
Yeah.
So he's in there doing all that. He's got his own crew. Then he's making good money, good salary. Another young man I spoke to just recently outside Indianapolis, he had gotten training and education as a pipe fitter. Oh,
love it.
What a
Yes.
good job. Now,
Yes.
are his hands getting dirty? Yes. Can it be cold a little bit? Yes. But he's got great salary and some benefits will go with that and all of those things. So college is just an avenue for the right fit. There are other fits out there that are great.
Absolutely. And in fact, I'm gonna shift my points around. The second point I was going to make, I'll make my third point, but my new second point will be to dovetail on exactly what you're talking about. And that is to learn about real world careers. I cannot express to you how disappointing it is to understand clearly how career illiterate our high school students are. They are literally career illiterate. That's probably there's some name for that, right? And it's not, I'm laughing about it. It is not okay at all. They have really, they kind of know a handful of jobs. Let's talk about what those jobs are. They know what a teacher does, right? Because they have been watching a teacher perform their job for somewhere, 10, 11, 12 years as they move through school. Beyond a teacher, they kind of know what mom and dad do. And when I say kind of, we interview students for a living, and we ask them, as one of the things that we want to know is for them to kind of characterize what their parents do. They really don't know what they do. They just tend to know whether they're happy or unhappy in that work. And that's important. But they also know, so a couple of other sources for our teenagers, they go to a doctor, they go to a dentist. If they're a sporty kid and they've ever been injured, they go to a physical therapist. So they have some insight into what those jobs are as well. And then they absorb other stuff, right, wrong, or otherwise, from social media, from programs that they watch. So a lot of career professionals will note the CSI effect that it's had on our teenagers. They all want to be a crime scene investigator, and they think that crime scene is solved, within 60 minutes. And of course, life doesn't work that way. So that limited, if you can imagine, our kids sort of have their head down and they don't really understand the totality of work experiences if they were to lift their head up and have someone guide them to understand what the real world of careers looks like and what the opportunities are that exist for them.
I think that's a tremendous point. And if I might piggyback on that for just a moment, and I could be kind of walking a fine line here, fine edge, but public education has, and I've discussed different scenarios in previous podcasts on education, but, we've kind of, there's a drift. I could be wrong, Beth. You see it much more than I. But the focus of career choice, the focus of teaching young people, options when they get out of high school or what to look to, go into in college, those kind of things. We've shifted to where the importance is on socio-political ramifications of our society.
There's that. I think there's also a big shift, Bob. The teaching to the test. I think there's a lot of pushes and pulls within what a teacher and a school counselor, what they have to do, what they want to do, what they have the time to do, what they can do within a public school setting. And I definitely do not have the right answer, but what I can tell you is with the result of what's happening today is that there is so little time and effort spent in any kind of consistency. There's no consistency of how students are exposed to real world careers. And so it's like we just expect them to get to the end of high school and magically know what they want to do. And that's never going to happen. There have to be actions taken during the high school years. And I've got some tips on some actions that families can take, but I know You've got something you want to add.
No, I'll just quickly interject. I mentioned the public charter school that I founded. And I founded the school as a college preparatory curriculum school. So the high school curriculum was geared strictly as college prep. In Indiana, it was called Core 40 or Academic Honors. There was no real general diploma that we offered because it was geared toward college prep. It was located in a city called Anderson, Indiana, that for decades and decades had survived with thousands of people employed by General Motors. So you could have walked out of any local high school back in the day, 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever.
Got a job.
A good job.
Yeah.
All the benefits, all the retirement, good pay, all the above, and very lucrative. Well, I noticed quick on when our school opened that college prep was a foreign language because some of the older generation, grandmas and grandpas, and even mom and dads, were still thinking, well, if my child gets an education, they can go. No, that's gone. The factories they've been imploded. They're gone. Yeah. So, there's a reality check too with where are we? Those manufacturing jobs that employed thousands or millions of young people back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, those are gone.
For sure. And the jobs, I think it's exciting though. I mean, we're looking back on those things are gone. It almost feels like a, not a sadness, but as we look back, we can understand those things existed and they no longer exist. I would like families to also look forward and be excited about what does exist today and the amazing career options that our kids have where they can go and do work that will play to their strengths, their interests. If they're more of a hands-on learner, if they want to do research, all those things are out there. They just have to become educated.
Beth, let me ask this question. Do you, in your line of work, what your company does, but do you also feel that young people today need to understand what realism is? Everyone wants to sit behind a computer. I'm just being metaphorically.
Yeah, no,
sit
you can
behind
say
a
that.
computer, make $100,000 a year, and life is good. When in fact, the average degree-holding graduate, the starting is about $28,000 to $30,000 on average. Now that's on average. The research that I've just recently done, but
here's another one that they again, and what you're referencing is a component of what I'm advocating, which is that family needs to do that career thinking and career exploration. Part of that career exploration would be to understand the reality, right? What kind of salary am I going to make as I start out in that role? That's a piece of data. Another piece of data is, what kind of education do I need, or even licensing or credentials do I need to do that kind of job? And what is the cost of that education going to be? So once again, return on investment. And for some reason, social work pops into my head, right? So typically to become a social worker, I need a master's degree, which means I need to complete my undergraduate and then additional master's work. And then, but what is my income shovel going to look like on the other side, right? I'm going to have made this big investment in my education. What is my income level going to be? In addition, one more quick one. I like families to understand if a kiddo has an interest in it, often a very, let's say, a very specific type job role. It would be really important for them to know how many of those exist in the American workforce today. Are there 500 people that do that? Or are there
Good point.
500,000 people that do that? And what is the projected growth of that particular job, right? Are there expected to be more of them in the next 10 years or less of them in the next 10 years? So I think those little components
Mhm.
of are part of the research. And I've got some tips on how families, so people are, if you tell a kid today, go research a career, they're going to say, okay, they're going to go to the internet, they'll go to TikTok, they'll poke around on some stuff, very inconsistent. They won't know what tools are trusted. They won't understand how to do that well. And this is something I'd really suggest that families do together, kind of shoulder to shoulder with their student. This is easily something that parents can do, in a few evenings a week. Do this in the summertime. Career exploration can happen through lots and lots of online resources. I love ONET online. I love the Bureau of Labor Statistics Occupational Outlook Handbook. I love videos that,
Mhm.
where
Mhm.
someone talks about a day in the life of what it is to be a veterinary ophthalmologist. What does that even look like? There are some amazing, remember I talked about earlier, those career tech programs and those career academies that may exist inside of a high school. Those are excellent ways for a student to sort of try on that early career exposure, job shadowing, informational interviews, summer programs that are tied to understanding more about a career. Even that single elective course, like I talked about for my son, that accounting class. Those are the things that can expose a student to the whole world of careers that's out there so that they can make better choices. So my first tip again was understanding all of those educational options. And then another big one is really taking the time to learn about real world careers.
Well, Beth, I think we've just scratched the tip of an iceberg here that is
Yep.
so interesting and so valuable. I think this, you're just going to have to come back because
I will come back. You have me back.
oh,
I'll come back.
that's a certainty.
I enjoy
because
talking with you.
you're working in an area that is so needed with our young people today. It's when I say young people today, it's needed for our nation today. So
Yes,
it's
it is.
huge. Beth, before we close though, just tell the audience how they might get in touch with you if a listener here or is sharing that info or wants to get in touch with you for their child who's a student in school, whatever. How can they do that?
You bet. You bet. So the easiest thing a family could do, the thing I'd recommend and I would want to know about, is that we produce a free weekly email newsletter every Sunday morning, pops into your inbox. Thousands of families read that every week. And it's about high school planning, career planning, and college planning, if that's in your student's future. There's tons of little tidbits that are in there, and any family can go to gettingatthecore.com/subscribe. And that will get them to the spot where they could subscribe to the newsletter. We did also produce a resource, a free resource for your listeners that is 12 tips to get your student interested and engaged with that career exploration. And any family can find that resource on gettingatthecore.com/career. And they'll find that and be able to download that resource. So those are the best and easiest ways. Anybody on the website can poke around at other things we do. click the call us button or email us button. They'll be able to get us any of those ways. And I have a team of about 15 people that all
Okay.
work to do things to support families and especially students as they navigate that path from high school on to what comes next. Certainly for all of them heading into a career field that will hopefully make them joyful and happy and match up with their lifestyle goals and expectations.
Great. Speaking of joyful and happy, you have a joyful and happy holiday season and a Merry Christmas.
To you too.
And I would also share that with our audience to enjoy this holiday season. And I hope everyone has a very merry one. Beth, we're going to have you back. And thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you, Bob. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me on Your Money, Manage It. My book, How to Manage Personal Finances Made Easy and Avoiding the College Debt Trap, can be found on Amazon and the bookshop. I will also include the link in the description of this episode. Find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and join me again next Monday. Thank you for listening.